So what's new other than me looking like a damn chia pet? Well, my 2 weeks of summer is 3/4 over. It's Wednesday and classes start back up Monday. I've been trying to chill as much as possible, but I have been working 4 days a week. So there's that, because just gotta make that money. I've also finally taken the opportunity to jump back into programming. I've mentioned this in previous videos, and I don't know how in-depth I went into it, but I've kind of settled on two main programs, which is SQL and Python. Obviously there's a lot of programs out there to start with, and these days most of them are pretty accessible as far as documentation and supplemental learning information and YouTube tutorials out the wazoo. There are so many 4 to 10 hour Python tutorials, it's absurd. I started doing that. I've been dabbling a little bit. I originally bought the Python Crash Course. I'll throw a picture of it on the screen. And that was okay, but I didn't feel like it started back far enough. And that's a common issue I found with a lot of tutorials. It's a problem for me personally. I don't know if other people feel the same way, but most Python tutorials start with installing Python and installing text editors and IDEs, integrated development environments, and virtual environments and all this other stuff. And then they almost always immediately jump into syntax and variables and data types and stuff. And that's all good and well, and obviously you have to learn it, but I've struggled a little bit to find information that starts before that, like what is Python good for? What makes it good for certain things? Why do we need a text editor and terminals and add-ons and IDEs? And I just want to take a step back, basically. I want to start from the basics of what programming is. I mean, obviously I know what programming is. We're writing computer code that, is translated through our language to machine code, whatever. But I guess I want to start from the basics, the very beginning. So I've kind of given up on Python Crash Course because I was in the middle of doing some data scraping from the internet, and I just didn't feel like I fully understood what I was doing. So I went to Barnes & Noble yesterday and I started flipping through their programming section, which luckily is pretty good. And I found a couple books that I think would work well, at least for me, that seem to start from the very beginning, and there's no assumptions made. It's for a person who is 100% new to programming. So I took some pictures of them, and then I went and ordered them on Amazon because they were half as much. Good God, no wonder physical bookstores are going out of business because they charge so much. I get they have rent and stuff, and employees, but dang, I'm not gonna pay $40 for a book unless it's a textbook. And even then, I almost always rent or buy used. But anyhow, so I ordered a couple of those, and I'm also in the process of making a YouTube playlist that's chronological. So it starts from the beginning. This is obviously other people's content. I'm not in a position to make this. It starts from the beginning of types of languages, what they're good for, what makes them different types of languages like object-oriented programming and stuff, excuse me. And then it slowly builds on that on program levels, high levels and low levels, and what that means, because I'm still not super sure. And I want to slowly build that up until I can find a really solid progression from the very beginning to doing pretty intermediate stuff in Python, whether that's data scraping from the internet or what have you, making plots and graphs and things. So that's been my task the past couple days. It's been pretty fruitful. Today I'm supposed to get the physical book, and I'm pretty sure it even has homework problems and exercise in it, which is 100% what I need. And I think a lot of other people would also agree that you can't really learn a program without actively doing projects. Because you can remember syntax and built-in functions and all this other stuff, reserved words all day, but if you're not actually using them, then it's hard to learn everything in a textbook and then make it all coalesce into one a couple dozen line program or more. So I definitely want smaller chunks in the form of exercises and whatnot. Because, I mean, not only do I want to be able to do this in my own time, I also want to have a knowledge in it that is, you know, marketable, which necessitates truly knowing it, not just dabbling in it and being comfortable enough with it to write, you know, a 24 line code that does some relatively basic stuff. I want to truly know it so that when I go to put it on my resume and say I am proficient in Python, I really and truly am. But I mean, that's just me. I don't know what employers expect when they look for programming stuff, but I'm willing to bet that any kind of programming you do in the private sector for some kind of business in whatever industry is going to be pretty intensive. They're not writing 10-line codes to pull information from some random website. They're doing stuff and it matters and it's important and it's probably pretty complex. So I want to really know the ins and outs of it, which is obviously not something I'm going to be able to conquer over 2 weeks, but I had a lot of spare time right now. So I'm using it as an opportunity to get myself kind of situated with all of my content and all of my exercises and stuff, so that when the semester starts up next week, I can come back to it more easily and do a little bit at a time, maybe like an hour every night or something, or reading in bed, you know, stuff like that. And then come fall, I'll also have to use Maple, which is similar to MATLAB, but even more straightforward. And as far as I know, less syntax heavy. That's not free like Python and SQL are, but I get it at a reduced price through the university. It's like half as much, but it's still like $50 or $60. So I'll probably wait to buy that until I need it. But from everything I've heard, Maple is extremely easy to use, like maybe one of the easiest languages to learn. So, and I have the upside, the benefit of having a lot of friends who have already worked extensively with Maple. So if I have issues, I can just call them or text them, and that's great. Because right now I don't know a lot of people working with SQL or Python other than computer scientists. And even then, I don't know if they're using those extensively or they're just using MATLAB or what. And speaking of MATLAB, that was the only formal coding course that I had in college, which I didn't do well in, but I still learned a lot in. And in the process, I had the MATLAB textbook, which I found to be really helpful. I wish I could find a good Python truly textbook that wasn't $80 and I would buy it in a heartbeat, then it'd probably be great and serve all my needs. But for whatever reason, those are pretty expensive. And I also still have my MATLAB license, so I was like, screw it. I'll go in and install it back and I'll dabble around to get reacquainted with it and, you know, dabble with it. Because if I can add that to my resume too and have MATLAB, Python, and SQL, that'd be cool. But I had some problems downloading it yesterday. It's like 50 gigs with all the add-ons. Like, holy shit. So I was in the process of downloading it yesterday and it kept freezing like a third of the way through. So, I mean, not really a high priority right now. It can probably wait a couple months or maybe never. I don't know how widely used MATLAB is in the real world. That remains to be seen when I start doing some more serious job research in the fall. It's what I've been focusing a lot of my time on when I'm not working and sleeping in until 10 a.m. So it's fun, it's enjoyable. I've always liked coding. It's always interesting to me, the process of figuring out what you want to do and then writing pseudocode and then translating that into real code. That's always been really interesting to me and kind of fun. Anyhow, so that's what I've been up to. I'm not looking forward to going back to school particularly, but we are nearing the end, thank God. And the first half of my summer semester is pretty straightforward. I only have one in-person class, so that's that. But I'm being productive and that makes me feel good, because I hate feeling like I just piss away time and I don't have anything to show for it, which I've been super guilty of in the past. So I'm trying to rein myself in a little bit, and obviously I still goof off a fair bit. I mean, I spend a couple hours on YouTube here and there and, you know, screw around town and do stupid stuff, go to a state park or whatever, but, you know, I would kick myself in the butt for, you know, the rest of college if I didn't make the most of these small downtimes to hone that extra stuff that's going to make me more marketable. But anyhow, that's what I got. But thanks for watching. See you next time.